You earn well. You work hard. You've advanced. And somewhere beneath the surface of those achievements, there's a question you don't ask out loud. Why doesn't this feel like security? The money arrives. The title changes. The recognition comes. But the underlying fragility remains. You've solved for income. But income was never actually the problem. This is not about earning more. It's about understanding why earning more can reinforce the exact vulnerability it was supposed to eliminate. We are taught a clear sequence. Education leads to career. Career leads to income. Income leads to security. The logic is airtight. The execution is flawless. The outcome is supposed to be peace of mind. But what arrives instead is a different kind of pressure. The salary that should have created breathing room now defines the baseline. The lifestyle that felt earned becomes necessary. The optionality you thought you were building quietly disappears. This isn't failure. It's structure. And most people never examine the structure. Career success solves for cash flow. It does not solve for financial resilience. Those are not the same thing, but they're treated as if they are. The conflation is everywhere. In how we're advised, in how we measure progress, in how we define arrival. You can be technically solvent and structurally fragile. You can have significant income and zero margin. You can advance professionally while becoming more financially dependent, not less. The problem isn't that you're doing it wrong. The problem is that the thing you're doing well is solving for the wrong variable. Let's be precise about what career success actually produces. It produces income, reliable, often increasing income. That income creates access to better housing, better schools, better healthcare, better experiences. It funds a life that feels appropriate to your education and effort. It signals competence to others. It signals security to yourself. But income is a flow. It requires continuous input. The moment the input stops, the flow stops. And if your financial structure is built entirely around that flow, you haven't created security. You've created dependency with better aesthetics. This is the part most people miss. They confuse the quality of the income with the quality of the financial position. High income feels like strength. It looks like strength. But if that income is entirely absorbed by a lifestyle that now requires it, the strength is cosmetic. You're running faster on a better treadmill. The treadmill is nicer. The view is better. But you still can't stop running. Consider the trap of proportional scaling. You earn more, so you spend more. Not recklessly, not foolishly. You spend in proportion to what feels appropriate for someone at your level. The house is nicer, but not extravagant. The car is reliable, but not flashy. The vacations are restorative, but not excessive. Everything is justified. Everything is reasonable. And everything now requires the income to continue. This is the invisible ratchet. Lifestyle adjusts upward to meet income. But it very rarely adjusts downward when it should. The new baseline becomes permanent. The expenses that felt like choices become fixed. And the income that was supposed to create freedom now creates obligation. You need it to continue, not to get ahead, just to stay in place. The difference between financial security and financial fragility is not how much you earn. It's how much of your life depends on continuing to earn it. There's a psychological component here that operates beneath conscious awareness. Your identity becomes entangled with your earning capacity. Not just socially, though that's part of it, but internally. The income becomes evidence of competence, of value, of having figured something out. This is natural, it's human, and it creates a quiet dependency that has nothing to do with actual spending. You begin to need the income not just for what it buys, but for what it means. The salary is validation. The bonus is confirmation. The raise is proof that you're still on track. When earning becomes identity, financial security becomes impossible. Because now you're not just trying to cover expenses, you're trying to maintain a sense of self. And that creates an entirely different kind of vulnerability. Let's talk about the opportunity cost of optimization. Most high-earning professionals are very good at optimizing within their domain. They advance. They specialize. They become more valuable within a specific context. This is rational. It's rewarded. It works. Until the context changes. The career path that produced increasing income is often narrow. The skills are valuable, but primarily within a particular industry or structure. The professional network is robust, but clustered. The trajectory is clear, but inflexible. You've optimized for vertical growth within a system, and that optimization has quietly traded away horizontal resilience. If the system shifts, if the industry contracts, if the company restructures, if the role becomes obsolete, the high income doesn't transfer easily. The years of specialization become friction. The seniority becomes a liability in a different market. This is not hypothetical. This is the structural reality of most professional careers. You've built a very efficient machine, but it only works in one environment, and you can't control whether that environment remains stable. Now consider the second-order effects. You've built a life around the income. Your family has built expectations around it. Your children are in schools that reflect it. Your home is in a neighborhood that requires it. Your social circle shares a similar economic baseline. These aren't superficial choices. These are deep commitments. And they create gravitational pull. If something happens to the income, not catastrophically, just a reduction, a plateau, a forced transition, you don't just face a financial adjustment. You face an identity crisis, a social dislocation, a renegotiation of what you thought was settled. And because you've optimized so completely for the single income stream, you have very few options that don't involve significant loss. Not just financial loss, social loss, psychological loss. This is the hidden cost of career success as a financial strategy. It works beautifully when it works. But when it doesn't, it fails comprehensively. Sit with that for a moment. You can do everything right, earn well, spend reasonably, save consistently, and still be structurally exposed. Because the structure itself is the vulnerability. The income is high, but it's singular. The expenses are reasonable, but they're locked in. The savings are consistent, but they're not large enough to replace the income. The career is successful, but it's not portable. This is not a moral failure. It's not a planning failure. It's a category error. You've solved the income problem, but the security problem was never about income. It was about independence, about options, about the ability to absorb disruption without collapse. And those things are not produced by earning more. They're produced by needing less, by owning more than you owe, by having time and space and flexibility built into the structure. Career success can fund those things, but it doesn't create them by default. In fact, if you're not deliberate, career success actively prevents them, because it fills your life with obligations that require the career to continue. Let's be clear about what financial security actually is. It's not a number in an account. It's not a salary level. It's not a title or a portfolio or a property. It's the distance between what you need and what you have. And that distance can be increased in two directions: by having more, or by needing less. Most professional advice focuses entirely on the first direction. Earn more, invest more, accumulate more. And those things matter, they're necessary. But they're insufficient if the second direction is ignored. Because as you earn more, your needs tend to expand. The baseline shifts. The threshold for enough moves. And the distance between what you have and what you need stays compressed, even as both numbers get larger. You're climbing, but the summit keeps moving. Real security comes from widening that gap, from creating space, from ensuring that your life can continue, and continue well, without requiring maximum input. This is not about deprivation. It's not about living below your means as a moral exercise. It's about understanding that security is not produced by income. It's produced by margin. Consider the difference between financial strength and financial resilience. Strength is capacity. It's earning power. It's assets. It's the ability to generate resources. Resilience is flexibility. It's the ability to absorb shock, to adapt, to continue functioning when conditions change. You can be strong without being resilient. In fact, most high-earning professionals are. They have significant strength, high income, growing assets, professional credibility, but very little resilience, because the system they've built requires everything to keep working exactly as it is. One disruption, illness, industry shift, company failure, personal crisis. And the strength doesn't matter, because there's no flexibility built into the structure. Resilience requires slack. It requires redundancy. It requires alternatives. And those things are not produced by optimizing for maximum income. They're produced by deliberately leaving capacity unused. That feels inefficient. It feels wasteful. It feels like leaving money on the table. But it's the difference between a system that performs well under ideal conditions and a system that survives when conditions aren't ideal. Most people optimize for performance. Very few optimize for survival. Now let's talk about the social dimension. Because it's operating whether you acknowledge it or not. Your income is not just private. It's signaled through where you live, what you drive, where your kids go to school, where you vacation, how you spend time. These signals create expectations from your peer group, from your family, from yourself. And those expectations create pressure to maintain the signals. Not because you're shallow, not because you're status obsessed, but because the signals have become enmeshed with your identity and your social world. This is social signaling debt, and it's as real as any other liability. You've built a life that requires a certain income to maintain, not just materially, but socially. To step back would require renegotiating relationships, explaining, justifying, absorbing judgment, And so you don't step back, you maintain. Even when maintaining requires continuing in a situation that's becoming unsustainable. The income that was supposed to create options has created a cage. A nice cage, but still a cage. This is why disciplined, intelligent people still feel financially exposed. It's not because they're bad with money. It's not because they're irresponsible. It's because the framework they're operating within produces exposure as a natural byproduct. The framework says build a valuable career, earn significant income, live appropriately to that income, save what's left, and that framework works. It produces middle class to upper middle class lives. It produces comfort. It produces achievement. What it doesn't reliably produce is security. Because security is not the natural outcome of career success. It's a separate thing that has to be built intentionally, often in ways that conflict with maximizing career success. You have to choose to keep the gap wide, to resist lifestyle inflation, to maintain flexibility, even when you could optimize it away. To say no to things you could afford, because affording them would make you dependent. These choices feel like sacrifice. They feel like underachievement. They feel like leaving something on the table. But they're the only way to convert income into actual security. Let's reframe the entire proposition. Career success is not a financial strategy. It's an income strategy. And that's valuable. Income is necessary, but income is not sufficient. Financial security is built from a different set of actions. Creating margin, building alternatives, reducing dependency, maintaining flexibility. Those actions are often in tension with career optimization. The same decisions that maximize your earning potential often minimize your resilience. The same focus that makes you valuable in one context makes you vulnerable outside that context. This is not a problem you solve by earning more. You solve it by understanding what you're actually trying to build. If you're trying to build income, career success is the right path. If you're trying to build security, career success is a component, but only one component. And if you mistake the component for the whole, you end up with exactly the situation you're in. High income, professional achievement, social recognition, and beneath all of it, a persistent sense of fragility that you can't quite name. Here's what changes when you understand the distinction. You stop treating salary increases as the primary measure of financial progress. Because salary increases don't widen the gap between what you need and what you have. They often compress it. You start evaluating decisions, not by what you can afford, but by what they require you to continue affording. The question isn't, can we buy this house? The question is, what does this house require us to keep doing? You recognize that the most valuable financial move is often the one that reduces your baseline needs. Not because poverty is noble, but because low needs create options, and options are security. You see career decisions through a different lens. Not just what pays more, but what reduces dependency. What increases portability? What creates multiple paths instead of one optimized path? These are not the questions high-performing professionals are taught to ask. But they're the questions that lead to actual security. This is not about rejecting success. It's not about opting out. It's not about living small. It's about understanding that the thing you've been optimizing for, career achievement, income growth, Professional status produces a specific outcome, and that outcome might not be the thing you actually need. You've solved the income problem. Genuinely solved it. You earn well. You're competent. You're progressing. But income was never the constraint. The constraint was structure. The constraint was flexibility. The constraint was the distance between what you need and what you have. And those constraints don't loosen just because you earn more. They often tighten. So where does that leave you? Right here. With clarity about what the problem actually is. Not that you're failing. Not that you're behind. Not that you need to earn more or save more or invest better. But that the framework you've been operating within has limits. And those limits become visible right around the point where you are now. You've succeeded within the framework. And now you're encountering what the framework doesn't solve. That's not failure. That's just the boundary of the tool. And recognizing the boundary is the first step toward building something different. Not instead of career success, but alongside it, underneath it, as the foundation that career success was never designed to provide. The income will keep coming if you keep working. The title will keep advancing if you keep optimizing. The recognition will keep arriving if you keep performing. But security, actual felt security, comes from a different place. It comes from needing less than you have, from having alternatives, from building a life that doesn't require everything to go exactly right. And that's not something you achieve. It's something you construct, deliberately, over time. Often in ways that feel like underachievement to people who don't understand what you're building. You've solved the wrong problem very well. Now you know what the right problem is.